Okay, so yesterday, or last week, we successfully finally got to enter in our very first vendor, or a very first vendor into the vendor center, right? And we talked about how we are able to do a lot of transactions when it comes with a vendor. We talked about class tracking and job costing. So now we are actually going to take a look at how we actually pay our vendors. Okay. Now, for any reason, right, when we are in the middle of QuickBooks and we decide to stop what we're doing and close our program, usually when you reopen up your QuickBooks, this is what usually you'll get. You'll get a prompt that says, "Hey, you want to continue on with the chapter 4," and it will populate for you to enter in a password, okay? Now, for any reason, let's say you do cancel it, it's always going to be the very first thing that you just last done. So in this case, expenses 21 QBM, and it tells you right here that you opened it on last week on September 13, which is today. Anyway, so in this case, we did it last week, right? So what you're going to do is you're just going to do the same thing and double click it, and it will open up the last thing that you just did. Now it should prompt you the password. Okay, so once again, if you guys remember what the password was, it was capital Q UESTIVA 21, Questiva 21. And what's going to do is it's going to pull up all the things that you last left off. So in this case, we'll check out the vendor center real quick, just so that we kind of get to see the person that we just put in there, which is Mr. Stephen Boswell. Okay. So here, because I have multi-screen multi-screens, right, I have to expand my homepage. So once again, there are 3 ways to get to the vendor center, right? It's either vendors tab on the homepage. You could go to vendors at the top of the menu, vendor center, or you can be able to access the vendor center through the icon bar, right? By clicking on vendors. This is default settings for the icon bar, okay? But if you don't have the vendor center on the icon bar, by default, this is what is already on there. So if you delete it or change it, whatever, modify it, it's not going to appear if you change it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just do the one on the home page. Is the easiest one. Okay, and of course, let's take a look and see if we can find Mr. Stephen Boswell. So in this case, he's Boswell Consultant, right? Again, for any reason that I need to view his information, I just click on it, just click once, and it should appear a little screen right here that gives like a really brief background on Mr. Boswell Consultant, and it also down here gives you all the transactions that you have with Stephen Boswell. Now, once again, this part right here, you may have to toggle, and we will look at that a couple times, okay? We'll focus on this section right here in a few, okay? And exactly what you could do here, right? For any reason that you decide to inactivate or activate a particular customer, a particular vendor. So for example, let's say City of Walnut Creek, right? Or maybe the Employment Development, or maybe Merrill Lynch, right? Any of those people, let's say, in this case, if I were to double click on them, I do have an option down below right here that this vendor is inactive. So if I click on that and click OK, right? In order to be able to view it, you do have to click this drop-down menu at the very top of the vendor center that allows you to see those people. So in this case, I could see my active, I could see all. So if I click all, I see that same exact X there because obviously that vendor is inactive. And you can always reactivate it once again doing the same thing by clicking that X. So again, there are ways that you could filter out your vendors. You can have them inactive if you don't ever speak with them or ever use them again. So there are ways, but you just, number one rule is if you use them, do not delete them. Okay. And most oftentimes, all the vendors that you enter in here anyway are most likely going to be used because, again, you enter them in there for a reason, to use them. So the best way for this one is to be able to inactivate them. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that, yes, you can do the same thing as for any other account, or yes, in this case, any other account. All right. Now, again, this gives us also a brief overview of what you owe a specific person. So if I actually go ahead and go to Wong and Son, since I owe them $142, how do I see that? Well, in this case, it shows me right away. But if I don't, what I do is I actually have to click all transactions, and then it will populate for you right here. So here I received a bill since January 11th of 2021. Okay, and of course this because I'm teaching you this so far out into the future, right? The book is actually focused in the very beginning of the year. So in this case, we're going to do retroactive transactions, meaning we're going to date them and we're going to go back into the past and fill those information out. Okay. So that's the cool thing about QuickBooks is you're able to go as far as whatever year that you'd like. Okay. However, again, when we talk about the rules of financial statements, right? Relative is going to be a characteristic of a financial statement, which means you should kind of have your transactions relevant in the same time period or time frame. You don't want to put in there something that was 5 years old, because that's going to skew your results, right? It's going to give you a little outlier or a little extra information that isn't tailored to what's current. Okay, so just a little fun fact there, or a little extra information there. So that's the vendor center. Now let's talk about how we actually pay our vendors. Okay, so there are a couple options that you can do, right? And I've talked about this very, very briefly in regards to any kind of form of payment, right? You could pay them by a check. You could pay them by a Visa credit card. You could pay them with an electronics funds transfer. And of course, you could pay them with either a debit card or cash itself, right? Now, of course, the best way for businesses to keep a nice paper trail is to use a check, because they have check numbers. It allows them to track where that money is going by going through online banking or going to the bank itself, getting a bank statement. So again, it's the most best way to use, or even a credit card transaction, because you can instantly view that transaction online. Plus, it's more widely used nowadays, right? But in this case, right, we have 3 ways that we can enter in or in this case, 3 ways to be able to pay a vendor, right? And the very first one is going to be paying them via a check, okay? Now, how we enter them in is going to be many different ways, okay? And the very first one we're going to talk about is how to use a register, okay? So if you guys remember way back when, in chapter 1, I talked about how to enter in a transaction, right? We talked about navigation, which is there are 3 ways to navigate QuickBooks, right? You have the home page, the menu bar, and the icon bar, okay? Now, when we talk about entering information in, you can either enter it through a register, you can enter it through like a form, or you can enter it like a list, or you can even enter it using items and etc., right? That was all in chapter 1. So today, I'm going to show you the very first thing, because we're going to be using a check to pay a vendor, right? And when we do that, I'm going to show you how to enter it in using a check, using a register, okay? Now, when I talk about registers, right, it's very, okay, so let's go to the chart of accounts. So here I am, chart of accounts. Now, what is a register, or which accounts actually have registers? Now, registers are very, 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 very similar to a ledger account, right? If you guys remember way back when, if I double click on this checking account, right? This is what a register looks like. It looks identical to a general ledger account. You have the date, you have the description, you have the amount that you put in there, and again, you have the account balance at all times. Okay? Okay. So, with that being said, right? That is called this is a register. Okay, so it's exactly like a general ledger where when you enter a transaction in here, you're going to notice that it's going to give you an account balance at all times. So right now in my checking account, I have $11,564.34. Okay, now I'm going to close this out. When I talk about registers, there are specific accounts that actually have registers, and then the other accounts don't have registers. All right, and here it is. Permanent accounts, also known as your assets, liabilities, and equity, right? If you guys remember from Accounting 101 or accounting itself, we have permanent accounts and temporary accounts. Permanent accounts never close out at a given period. So a great example of this is a checking account. Can you ever close out your checking account? Okay. And obviously, reasons of you closing out a checking account is either one, you either froze your assets because someone stole your bank credit card or hacked your bank account, or two, you are closing your business. You're no longer having business, so no need to have a business checking account. That is what it means to close it out. Whereas your temporary accounts, which we know to be your expenses and your revenues, right? Those type of accounts normally close out at the end of a given accounting period, all right? So if my accounting period is monthly, right? Think about it this way. When you close out your temporary accounts, which is your revenues and your income, think of it this way, right? It is a perfect way to measure profitability, right? Because you will never incur the same exact expenses for that month, right? You'll have fixed expenses where you have a reoccurring bill every month, such as rent. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, in the month of August, right? Or the month of September even, we had a Labor Day sale. Therefore, I need to have marketing materials. I need to have special discounts. I need to have all this for the month of September. But in the month of August, there's no holiday that I can celebrate. So therefore, most likely, marketing materials would definitely be a lot lower. Okay, and that's a great example of looking from a month-to-month basis, right? Where my expenses are different. Same thing goes with income. You may have a spike or you may have a slow month of sales in the month of August because there's no holiday, right? Where, boom, once you have your Labor Day sale, then there's a huge spike in your revenues because, like I mentioned before, that's just how supply and demand works, as well as how customers are willing to spend their dollar, is that if something's on sale, they're more likely to buy it versus something that's full price. So that's a great example of why we would close our temporary accounts at the end of a given period, is because it gives us a way to measure profitability. And notice this. Let's check out on the right side of the column, right? When we talk about accounts having registers, you're going to notice that all of my assets, all my liabilities, and my equity all have an account balances. But once I dive into my equity, obviously, we haven't done too much in equity because there's a lot of extra accounts in here. But we do have our equity open balances to be a total of $10,000, right? But notice this. Once I dive into my income and my expenses, right? So expenses first, and then our income first and then expenses after, none of it have account registers, right? If I double click on an expense account, it's going to automatically give me what's called a quick report. And again, we will take a look at what a quick report is in chapter 6, which is next in 2 weeks, so after the exam. Okay, so that's the difference between your temporary accounts and your permanent accounts, right? Your permanent accounts are the ones that are going to have registers. They have account balances. They have a ledger account, okay? While your temporary accounts close at the end of the given period, and they have what's called quick reports. So since I'm already on my chart of accounts, I'm able to access my checking register by double clicking on my chart of accounts. That is one way we can access the checking account register, okay? Second way that we could do it is literally right on the home page. You could see your check register right here. When I click on that, you'll get a small window that says right here, what account do you want to access? In this case, it's only allowing you to access your bank accounts. So in this case, I can only access my checking account, my money market, savings, and journal entries. And we'll talk about journal entries in chapter 14. Okay. So right here, I just click right here where it says checking and make sure it's that. And I'd click OK, and I would get that same exact window that has the register like this. Okay. And the last way to be able to access the register is by going up to the top menu bar, going to banking, and you have use registers. And then this right here is where you can toggle any account that has a register. So it will give you a drop menu of every single thing. Okay, so this is where you're going to find most of your register transactions that you're able to enter in if you prefer to use a register. Okay. But in this case, I already have my checking account open. So here I am at my checking account. All right. And as you can see, you can even go through it just exactly like your bank account, right? This is the one, this is QuickBooks bank account. All right. This isn't more or less your real bank account, but this is how you update your account, because oftentimes when you do write physical checks, how do you update your bank account in QuickBooks? This is exactly it. So as you can see, notice this, that you've been writing a bunch of checks and etc., etc. Okay. So I'm going to show you the very first exercise here, where we're going to take a look at writing a check. Or in this case, we're going to use the check register to enter in a transaction. So let's see, the very first thing here is that this is for manual checks, okay? What do you mean? What's the difference between a manual check and using the actual checkbook in QuickBooks? Now, in this case, a manual checkbook is when you actually physically get your own separate checkbook from the bank and you write them a check out. You do need a place to record it, okay? So in this case, right, that's exactly what I did here, where we wrote a manual check, and what you're going to do is now you're going to record it and update your bank account, because once again, an actual manual physical check is 100% correlated to your actual bank account. So how do I make my books reflect that? This is how. So again, we go directly into the register itself, right? The date here says that we're going to be using a check register, manual check, or EFT. So this is where you're able to make your clear depiction on how you actually paid. So in this case, we're writing a manual check, right? Use check number, default, or sorry, so in this case right here where it says the check number, you can use either or, like if you use a debit card, that's exactly how you'd enter it in, right? And I'll show you more in details when we get into the actual looking at the write a checks window. Okay, so in this case, we are looking at the date to be February 8th. So in this case, I have to go all the way back to February. Oop, too far. Okay, so January, February. Now in this case, they always recommend you to use the little calendar to enter in a date. You can type in your date. It does work that as well. However, the most best recommended is to ensure that there is no typos, that you do use the little calendar icon that is available for the date. So in this case, February 8th is our date. Okay. And let's see, we used check number. Okay, in this case, it automatically filled in for me, saying this is check number 332. In this case, my book tells me it has to be 331, because notice this. Above it says 330. Above that says 329, 324, 328. So in this case, I need to make sure I don't skip any numbers. So 331 is the check number that I used, okay? And if I just type in that number there, automatically it's going to appear as an actual check itself. Like, we didn't enter it in yet, but it will appear as a check. Okay? Now, in this case, right, now it's telling me, okay, the next thing that we need to fill out is who did we actually purchase? Or in this case, who is the vendor that we used in order for this transaction to work? And in this case, we're going to use the feature called Quick Add. So this is where it makes it that much more easier to enter in information. So Bay Office Supply. Now notice this. Remember when I told you about using the autofill feature? In this case, I'm typing in B and I don't see anything, right? Because this person that we're typing in is called Bay Office Supplies. Notice this, I don't see anything that pops up. But the minute I hit that tab button, QuickBooks is going to recognize that, hey, you don't have anybody in the system that's named Bay Office Supplies. So in this case, it's going to give you a couple of options. It's going to say you either add them in, set them up, or you can just clear it out and maybe you made a typo. In this case, right, I'm going to use the Quick Add feature. All right, it's going to ask you what kind of person is this person, and I'm going to say vendor, and I'll click OK. And what happens is it will create a temporary profile for Bay Office Supplies, right? So then later on, when you need to fill the information, such as maybe you need to order from this place, their address, their phone number, whatever that you need to add in there, you can go back and add the information in there in the vendor center. But in this case, this is a place where I literally drove by and I was like, I need to buy some office supplies real quick. This could be a quick vendor, right? Then I could just quickly create a profile as I go. And that's exactly what I'm telling you. You could always quick add anything in QuickBooks, whether it's a person, whether it's an account, whether it's an item. That's how QuickBooks makes it that much easier. If there is no account, add it in there. And that's where I was telling you in chapter 12 that is the reason why, if you're not very careful with QuickBooks, right, and you're just adding, that's where you could accidentally add an account that already exists, okay? And that's what I mean. So I may have added Bay Office Supplies, right? They could be a customer to me, or they might be put on another list. So if that's the case, then I need to make sure that I do type in there and make sure I search through everything before I quick add this person, okay? So that's how it makes it that much easier to enter in a transaction, okay? So in this case, I quick added Bay Office Supplies, and now my vendor center has a new vendor, okay? So then, next thing is going to be, what account are you making this purchase for? In this case, I bought office supplies. So in this case, right, I type in office, and boom, I have office supplies, I have officers' compensation, telephone expense, and then I have office phone. So in this case, right, office supplies is definitely something that I am looking for. And how you could be able to toggle through this, if you are a person that doesn't like to use the mouse and rather use the keyboard, you could use your up and down arrows to find the account that you want. Or again, you can just go ahead and click on it and boom, I am going to choose office supplies. So once again, by just typing in OF, right? I notice that yes, I do have an account. If not, I can always quick add that account if I don't have an office supplies account, which in this case I do. So again, that's why it's very important that you set up your chart of accounts so it makes it that much easier and quicker to fill in all the information. Okay. Now again, the memo could be whatever that you'd like to put in there. In this case, I'm just going to write office supplies. Straightforward. Okay. And then now you're going to type in the amount. Okay. And in this case, the amount for this one is going to be a total of $128.60. Okay. And then again, enter if you are completely done with the transaction. Tab if you want to try to move through one frame at a time or one box at a time. Enter is your tab is your best friend to move across the board. Enter is when you're done and you want to validate the transaction. So I press enter, and if you heard that, you get a beep of approval that tells you, hey, all right, now notice this, right? I told you when I entered it in, it automatically said I wrote a check. All right, for $128.60, and boom, it took that out of my checking account. So now I am down to $11,435.74. All right, just like that. And that's how easy it is to enter in stuff using the register. Okay, so that's the very first run right there. Okay. Now, for any reason you need to edit the information or maybe make changes to it, you can go ahead and double click on this, what do you call it? You could double click the check, or what you can do is, let me close this out real quick. On your check register, you do have the button where you can either split it or you can actually view it, and you could just go ahead and double click on it, and there you go. Now I'm viewing the actual form that I could use for the future, all right? And this is what I was talking to you guys about when it comes to what if I didn't write a check? What if I did an electronic funds transfer? What if I used my debit card? This is where it says right here, where instead of using a check number, you can either write debit, you could write an EFT, or you can actually write something else in there in place of an actual check number. All right, and then QuickBooks is going to recognize, okay, well then, this is what you did instead. You used a debit card to pay for this transaction, or you used an electronic funds transfer instead of a check, all right? And let's notice this, right? Here you go. I purchased office supplies for a total of $128.60, all right? And here's what's really cool about this feature. I can go on beyond that and actually do what's called a split payment. So if you guys remember from earlier last week, I talked about class tracking, right? So this is a perfect example how you can use a check and be able to split it amongst the classes that you are separating the expense for. So in this case, right, I may have bought office supplies, okay? But what I can do here is I can actually tailor exactly what I bought. So in this case, right, I can make a split payment, $100 to printer paper, and then I can also split $28.60 to actually something else, right? So in this case, I can actually tell what I actually purchased. So in this case, instead of doing just office supplies, which is very vague, right? Office supplies could be anything. I can go as far as saying, well, I actually spent $100, okay? Now again, I'm going to make another office supply. No, in this case, this isn't office supplies. So in this case, I bought $100 worth of printer paper. Now here's the trick here. QuickBooks will not allow you to move on forth if your amount that you wrote here was $128.60 and the amount here in your transactions do not match, right? It will give you a flag saying, are you sure you want to make these changes? And that's where you say, well, yes, because you're basically telling QuickBooks to override the issue at this point. So in this case, I bought $100 worth of printer paper, and in this case, I bought it for the San Jose location, right? So again, classes are used for any type of meaning for you to separate your income and your expenses based on either a location, a line of business, department, etc., etc., okay? And in this case, I actually only bought office supplies or in this case, I bought printer paper worth $100, and that was for the San Jose location, okay? And what happens here is I actually bought internet cables. So in this case, so computer and internet expenses. And that's where I paid $28.60 to pay for internet cables for my Walnut Creek location. So in this case, I am breaking down my expense based on specific criteria, right? What did I actually buy? And in this case, I bought some office supplies, and I actually bought internet and computer supplies. Okay, so here I still get to my grand total of $128.60, which is the exact amount that I actually wrote a check out for. And this time I'm separating it based on my classes, which is my store location. So I bought specifically printer paper for this location, and I bought specifically internet cables for that location. Okay, and once again, you have two options at the bottom: save and close or save and new. Save and close literally means you're going to close the window. New is where you actually create another check. And that's the difference between them. So at the end of the day, you can either click either or, but let's say I am done using the check register, I can go ahead and click save and close, right? And then you're going to get this window that says, are you sure you made changes to this transaction? Are you sure you want to save it? And you want to say yes, right? Once you get that beep of approval, notice this time. When I take a look at my check again, it tells me that I have a split payment. Okay? All right? And we're splitting it based on what expenses belong to which class. All right? So that's what's cool about that. So instead of having to buy paper for both locations, you can divide them and say, well, I only bought it for this location. All right? So that's an example of how we use class tracking to be able to separate our expenses. So any questions here?
No.
Okay. So once again, this is how I enter a transaction using the check register. Okay. Now the second way is that, or sorry, not the second way. Another way we can actually use the feature of a write a checks window is if you are planning to proceed with Intuit's offers to purchase an actual checkbook for them. Or in this case, what they're going to send you is usually a bunch of blank checks that you can actually print on top of, okay? And normally you're able to do that if you go to the bank. You're also able to buy those printable checks, right? Because it's a legal U.S. Treasury type of check. It's got that holographic seal on the back of it, or in this case, it has those little miniature. To me, it looks like black and white dots on them, or like it's like that nice shimmery blue color. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's a legitimate form of a check that's used by that's universal to any type of bank account. Okay, so it's a legitimate U.S. Treasury note. Okay, and with that, yes, you can order it through Intuit, or you can also order it through your actual bank. So in this case, right, and that's what I'm going to say, the convenience and the great thing about being able to use QuickBooks and being able to print your own checks is that for that reason. Now, of course, you can't be printing checks on a blank piece of paper because that's not a legitimate treasury note. You're not able to be able to produce checks randomly. Okay, you do have to pay to buy those checks that you can print. And some companies or some places even go as far as you actually having a specific type of ink in order to print on it, right? You definitely don't want liquid ink, because if you drop it in water, what's going to happen? Boom, all of the ink's going to fly off. So in this case, there could be special ink that you may need to purchase in order to print on those types of checks. And by doing so, I'm going to use the Write a Checks feature. Okay, so again, on the home page under banking, you have the Write a Checks feature. Okay, you also have it by going up to banking and boom, Write a Checks. Okay. Now, of course, another way that you could do it too is you could go to your actual register itself. So checking register, right click it, and it will give you the option to write a check as well. But that one is not as widely used as the home page and the menu bar. Okay, so this is an extra feature right here. Okay. So once again, I'm going to use the easiest one, which is going to use the home page to go ahead and write a check. Okay. So if I click on this, right, it's going to give you that same exact form that we just took a look at in the check register. All right. So once again, here it looks just like that. First thing you need to remember is at the very top of the window, you need to make sure which account are you actually drawing money from or writing a check from. In this case, most cases, it's always usually default to your checking account. But, however, you could write a check from your savings account in case your checking doesn't have enough. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and make sure, just triple check that I am writing it out to my checking account. And what happens here is it gives you your account balance at the top. So to let you know, this is how much money you have in your bank account, all right? And this is a good feature because oftentimes when a business usually pays their bills, they're writing 50 or so checks left and right. And they need to know how much money they have in the bank account at all times. So here's a little quick overview right here that shows you how much money you have in your bank account, okay? Now, again, I'm going to show you this feature because, once again, we didn't write a manual check, right? Because automatically it popped up as check number 332, which is your manual checkbook. And in this case, we didn't write a manual checkbook. We're actually going to be printing out our own checks. So in this case, how do I take that off? Okay. So what you're going to do is at the very top of the window, you have an option to print later. Okay. Now notice this. Look at my check number. It says to be printed. Okay. Now, of course, if you have a check number that you already like created or have a sequence to, and you know exactly, and you're going to print this check right away, then go ahead and type in that number and you're able to print this check right away. Now, if you click that print later, what happens is it will assign the check numbers later. So in this case, I'm going to hold off and I'm going to assign the check number later, right? Because if you're going to be using the feature and you're going to be printing a bunch of checks all at one time, it's better that you just fill it all your bills in, wait till the very end, and then just have the printer just shoot out all the checks right then and there. Okay. You can do one check at one time. That's also available to you. But again, the purpose of having QuickBooks is so you can go into QuickBooks, be able to finish your transactions, and make it quicker for you to finish the transaction. Okay. So in this case, we notice the date is automatic because I set it to February 8th, and boom, look at that. It's already automatically February 8th. Okay. Now, again, you have two options. You can fill in the number there, or you could just fill in the bottom section right here, and it will calculate the total amount for you up in that window. So again, you don't need to fill that unless you want to. But again, if you fill that in there, you will get that window in case you make a typo and the numbers do not match. You will get an error, and it will not let you go through. Okay, so in this case, to prevent that from happening, I'd rather just type in my information down below because it's going to automatically add up the totals and bring you your total amount up here. Okay. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pay Orlando Properties. Okay, so typing in that OR and there it is, Orlando Properties. I've already created an account for Orlando Properties. Now notice this. Once I click away or click to another tab, all of a sudden, by me filling in that information, right, just putting in Orlando Properties, it automatically filled in the address for me, and it automatically filled in that, oh, you must be paying rent. So this is exactly why it is recommended to go ahead and create your vendor profiles first because it saves you that much extra time instead of having to type in every little detail about this vendor. It already does it for you. Okay? All right? And it already associated that, hey, you're going to be paying rent expense to Orlando Properties. Okay? Now, in this case, of course, that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to pay Orlando Properties for the San Jose location for rent. So you could say in the memo, so the memo is whatever you want to say in here. So I could say monthly rent expense, okay, for San Jose store, whatever that you could put in here. So this one, it doesn't have to match the book. You could say whatever you like here. All right. And again, the memo could be the same. If you could also use the copy and paste feature. So using your keyboard, Control C to copy it, and I can also paste it down here in this memo right here. Now the amount that I paid is going to be a total of, a total of $3,200. Okay, so notice this, I typed it in here. The minute I move or tab over, it automatically filled it up for me up here. And that's how simple it is. So you don't need to fill this right here. You could just fill in this and it will just give you the sum up at the top for you automatically. And in this case, I made a payment to the San Jose location. So in this case, this is an expense that I incurred for the San Jose location. All right. So there you go. I filled out the form just as easy, right? Filling it as I go. So first thing is what account that you're looking at, who's the vendor you're looking at, what date did you have this? Again, the memo and what was the item or account that I used to associate this expense with. All right. In this case, I'm paying rent expense for $3,200. And I did it for the San Jose location. Boom. And once again, enter to validate that a transaction is complete. And then again, I'm going to close this window real quick. Okay. And if I go to my check register one more time Every time you enter in something like that, you're going to notice this. Boom. I wrote another check for the 3,200 and it is right there. Okay? So again, it will put it into your check register because again, your check register is the same thing as your general ledger. It's going to keep an updated post on every single transaction. And again, you don't need to physically put it into the ledger. It does it for you automatically behind the scenes. All right? I just paid rent. It took the money out automatically by me filling out the form for the write a checks window. Okay? Any questions?
Magdi,
Yes.
when that the number return back to the print,
Uh-huh.
to print for reconciliation, they have problem. I need after 3 days a week, I need instead of to print, I need number 332.
Okay, so the difference between what I just said earlier, right? 332 is a manual check, as in that when you actually took your actual book, your physical checkbook that you received from the bank, and you cut that check, that's the number that's associated to this. This one, I haven't even printed the paycheck yet. Or not the paycheck. I haven't printed the paycheck yet. I said paycheck twice. You haven't printed the check yet. So in this case, I haven't even paid my vendor yet. And in this case, I'm going to show you how to assign that number in a few minutes. So yes, that number where it says to be printed, you will see a number appear. Okay. So here we go. Here we have it. So once again, I have this feature right here where it's to be printed. All right. I haven't even printed the check yet because there's features that I need to fill in, such as I need to sign it, right? I need to put a number on it. I need to actually print it out. In this case, it's just only laying in my register. It's still in the computer system. But in my perspective, I still haven't even paid them yet. So that's where we will talk about how to print it a few moments later because I still have to teach you the next section. Okay, so in this case, that's what I mean is every time you enter in the transaction, right? This is an accrual type basis, right? I still haven't paid them yet. I haven't even printed out the check yet. It's still in my computer. But because it's doing an accrual type of accounting, it automatically counted because I said I paid an expense already. But I actually haven't physically done it. But it's giving me a updated amount saying, hey, now I only have $8,235. Okay? So again, this is a accrual type of counting, right? I didn't actually use a physical checkbook or I didn't pay with cash. In this case, it's pending for me to authorize the rest of the transaction because again, I need to sign the check. I need to put a check number on there. I need to print the check. So in this case, again, that's going to be something that I'm going to teach you in a few moments here. Okay. So any other questions?
No.
Okay. So that is how I can pay my vendors, right? I can either pay them using a check, like an actual physical check that you get from the bank, or I can actually use Intuit's printable checks that make it available and easier for me to be on the computer or at the office and just printing and paying my expenses right then and there instead of having a physical checkbook and handwriting them all the checks and actually sending them all out. Okay, so this is where it could save you a lot of extra time here. All right. So the next way that we're able to also pay a vendor is by using what's called the bill payment. Now, in order to use a bill payment, you actually need to enter in a bill. You need to create a bill for you to be able to use the pay bills function. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to be entering in a bill. So how do I enter in a bill? It's straightforward. As you can see, we have what's called, right here on the home page, the enter bills. Okay? Now, that's just only one way. In this case, we have 6 different ways to be able to enter in a bill. Okay. Number 1 is going to be under enter bills, right here on the home page. If you go to the vendor's menu bar, you're able to enter a bill that way. Okay? Any way that you can enter in the vendor center, right? So if I enter the vendor center anyway, right? That's 3 ways to enter the vendor center. I can right click a supply, just an example, and I'd be able to enter in a bill. Okay? I can also go ahead and use the top feature at the very top where it says new transaction. I can enter in a bill. Okay? And I can also even go to the Ace Supply once again. And here's their profile, right? This is the transaction that I have with them. I can go down here, click Manage Transactions, and I also can enter in a bill. In this case, it's just bills. So that was homepage, menu bar. When you get to the vendor center, you have new transactions, right click, or manage transactions, okay? Now the 6th one, I will show you in a few minutes here. Now this is a new feature that's been introduced to QuickBooks since 2018, and that's called the bill tracker, okay? What is a bill tracker? Well, let's take a look. You can access the bill tracker here on your vendor center, or that could be a feature that you can find on your icon bar. Now, if I click on my bill tracker, it's going to basically give you a list of all the bills that you owe to other people. And it will give you a little statistic at the top saying how much you paid, how much you owe, how much is overdue, and how much did you actually pay. So in this case, I paid 0 people, which is correct. Okay, I should have 1 bill that is overdue. Perfect. Okay, and it gives you a list of every single transaction here. So in this case, I only have 1 bill, but as I enter it in here as well, you're able to go down to Manage Transaction and be able to enter in a bill this way. So that's the 6th way you can enter in a bill using the bill tracker. Okay. So again, since I'm already on my bill tracker, I'm just going to go ahead and click on bills, and boom, here is my window here where I can enter in a bill. I'm going to make this full screen or make my window bigger, okay? And so now the question is, what do I need to fill in to enter in a bill? Well, let's see. Okay, I believe at the very top tells you who are you going to, or who's the vendor that you entered in. And in this case, right, you're going to be entering, let's see, I think it's Ace Supply. Okay, you're going to enter a bill in for Ace Supply. So ACE, here they are, Ace Supply. So once again, by me tapping or just clicking on that person's profile, vendor profile, it will pull up all the information, including the terms that they gave me. Okay, automatically fill in their address, their terms that they gave me, and et cetera, et cetera. In this case, it even put in office supplies, which that's not what I'm going to be purchasing. Okay. Again, the date is still going to be the February 8th. And this time, I have a whole entire bill for this. Okay, hold on. A supply. So in this case, the reference number. The reference number is going to be your billing number that you receive on the actual bill. okay? So this is a created number that's already created for you. All you got to do is look on your bill to find that billing number. And in this case, it's 2085, okay? And this time, it's for the full amount of $360, okay? Again, what happens here, it gives you, when you have a term, it gives you a discount due date, and then it gives you an actual due date. So you are aware of when your discount is and also when the actual bill is due. So in this case, I know that if I pay within by February 18, I will definitely receive a 2% discount. If not, this entire bill is due on the 10th of March. Okay. All right. In this case, it's let's see, what does it say? It's net 30. So again, this is upon receiving the actual bill. Okay, in this case, it looks like they miscalculated. It's supposed to be exactly 30 days, so it's supposed to be the oh wait, but then again, February only has 28 days, so that's correct. All right. So memo, once again, you could type whatever you want in here. In this case, I believe we purchased photo materials for Jerry Perez. Okay, so you could type in here, photo materials for Jerry Perez. Okay. Now, who is Jerry Perez? Jerry Perez is a customer of ours. So this is an example of using job costing. Okay. So in this account right here, we are not using this account. We're going to be using cost of goods sold. Okay. Because once again, we sold this product to a specific customer. All right. In the amount of $360. The exact thing right here, memo, is going to be photo materials. Okay. Again, customer job. We bought this for Jerry Perez. So notice this. I type in Jerry. There he is, Jerry Perez, or Perez Jerry. Okay. And again, we'll talk about what this billable icon means in chapter 9. Okay. Here, I'm custom buying an order for a particular customer. So I'm buying specifically photo materials just for Jerry Perez. I'm not buying it for all of the customers that are available here. Okay, it's just specifically for Jerry Perez. Okay. Once everything looks good, okay, then I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. Okay, and again, it's going to say, well, oh, wait, hold on, I forgot something. Cancel. Where does Jerry Perez belong to? And in this case, he belongs to, let's see, he belongs to Walnut Creek location. Okay. And again, if I forgot to fill that out, watch this. So then let's say I'm going to go ahead and pretend I forgot about it, okay? Let's say I don't know what it is, okay? And I go ahead and save and close. All right, and it says that okay, one of more name items have not been assigned a class. What we're gonna do is we're gonna say save anyways. Okay, let's just go ahead and save it. Now watch this. So again, it populates here my bill tracker, right? Ace Supply for bill number 2085, okay? The date's there and the due date's there, right? And it's saying it's overdue because right now it's taking today's date. But in this case, you know, this is the example. So that's one way that you could find it, right? Another way that you could find it is simply by going to the vendor center itself, okay? Click on Ace Supply. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have all transactions available. And boom, here you go. I entered a bill, the 2085, right here on this date of February 8th. And in order, if I want, let's say I forgot to put the class, right? You saw me not put the forgot to put the class. What I can do is I can double click on this bill and it will populate the form once again. And I can make changes to this form at any single given time. So in this case, I forgot to add the class. I type in Walnut Creek, okay? And say, no, now I'm done with this bill. I could go ahead and click save and close. It will say, hey, you made changes to this bill. Are you sure you want to save it? And I say yes, okay? So now that means with the given permission, right, because I'm admin, that means you can edit, manipulate, transform anything you want in QuickBooks, right? It's just like an Excel sheet, right? If you made a typo, you can always go back and fix it. That's the same thing here in QuickBooks. If you make a mistake, you can always go back and fix it. Just as easy as that. All right? Even though it's not recommended, right? Remember we talked about it's not recommended to edit information like that. But again, it's human error. We make typos all the time. Or we may forget to add in something in there. And that is okay to make edit or changes there. Okay? The only thing that you shouldn't do is delete the transaction. Okay? So once again, there it is. My bill is there. Now, every time I enter in a bill, therefore, I'm creating what's called an accounts payable, right? So let's take a look. So by entering in a bill, right, here's my bill tracker, right? I have 2 bills with a total amount overdue to be a grand total of $502, okay? Now let's talk about the actual accounts payable account. So if I go to my chart of accounts and I go ahead and locate my accounts payable, right? If I follow the line, it's going to tell me, hey, you owe $502. And that's exactly what I owe. If I double click on it, I'm going to show up that I have a bill outstanding for Wong and Son for $142. And then I just entered in this additional bill right here for $360. So once again, this is what I mean by you just entering in the information and QuickBooks does all the accounting behind the scenes for you. All right. So for those who were in my accounting class, do you see what I mean? You don't need to know anything except for entering in one way and QuickBooks will do everything for you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I see.
Okay. So there you go. I didn't have to edit or add in all my transactions in there. I didn't because in this case, my bill involved with a cost of goods sold account. It dealt with my accounts payable, which is things that I owe. So in this case, it automatically did it for me, and I didn't have to do anything. Okay. So now that I have number 1, more money that I owe, now let's take a look at the flow of transaction. Since I already entered a bill, let's see what I have to do next. I need to actually pay the bill. Okay. Now again, for the QuickBooks 2021, what you can do is you can use the Write a Checks feature. And if you use the Write a Checks feature, it will alert you that, hey, you're trying to make a bill payment. So in this case, it will allow you to enter in the bill. However, it may stop you and give you an error message saying, hey, it will give you a warning saying you already have a bill that exists. All right. So in this case, right, you can't override that. Okay. But it will give you a error message saying, hey, hold up. This looks familiar. Are you trying to make a bill payment? And if you are, then use the bill payment feature. Don't use the Write a Checks feature because, once again, these two are directly correlated to each other, right? By entering a bill, I'm increasing my accounts payable. By paying my bill, I'm decreasing my accounts payable, okay? Where if I do a completely separate transaction to say, hey, I'm just going to use Write a Checks, you entered a bill, you increased your accounts payable. However, by you decreasing your checking account, that has no association to the accounts payable that you increased. So in this case, they do strongly recommend you to use the pay bills feature in order to be able to reduce the accounts payable. Okay? So make sure you do know that and you are aware of that that's the case. You never should use write a checks feature because it will recognize that, hey, you already have this expense occur. It will remind you that you may be subject to doing a duplicate transaction. And of course, that's the cool thing about QuickBooks is it reminds you, it stops you, it tells you, hey, if you're trying to pay a bill, use the pay bills function. All
I'm
right.
sorry, can you repeat that? You said never to use the write a check feature?
Never use it if you entered in a bill. Okay. You can use it if you did, like, again, if you went to the store, right, and you decided to just pick up office supplies randomly, right? You're not receiving a bill. You're paying at time of service. So that's where you can use the write a checks feature. But in this case, if you're billed or invoiced something, right, that you owe somebody money, never use write a checks because it will not link the association to your bill. It will just create a completely brand new transaction and it will tell you, hey, are you sure? Because you have a familiar looking bill. And if you are going to do that, please use the bill payment instead of using the write a checks feature.
Okay, so pretty much to avoid a duplicate per se.
Correct. And if you want to try it, you can do it at home too. In this case, I have to keep moving.
Okay, thank you.
So there you go. So that's just a little heads up for you and a fair warning that if you do use the write a checks window, it will prompt you saying, hey, you are about to duplicate a transaction. Are you sure? It looks like you're trying to pay off a supply. No. And in this case, it will tell you to use bill payment, okay? Or pay bills option, okay? So once we arrived to that location, right? Now the time is going to be literally to go ahead and pop in your information, or in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the pay bills feature. Now in this case, we talked about the bill tracker, right? You can run reports if you'd like right now, because usually right now we have 2 unpaid bills, right? So in your book, it kind of stops you before you do your pay bills, is that, hey, for any reason that you are entering multiple bills, maybe 50 bills at one time, right? And you haven't successfully paid them. So if you're not familiar of using the bill tracker, right? The bill tracker pretty much gives you a summary of everything that's going on, gives you a summary of what you have to pay, and in this case, you're actually able to make the transaction in here. Where a report allows you to view it, but you can't edit the information, right? It just gives you a report on how much money you owe. So in this case, I can go to my reports menu, drop down to vendors and payables, and I can run a, unpaid account balances. Where is unpaid bills details? If I click that, it shows me here that I owe Ace Supply and Wong and Son. And this is something I can print. And we will talk primarily about all reports in chapter 6, which is in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks from now. Actually, yes, next week actually, not this week. Okay. So again, you can build reports, and again, this is a perfect way to kind of run it through your accountant saying, hey, accountant, this is how many bills I haven't paid yet. Can you give me authorization to write all these checks? And then so on and so forth, okay? All right, and this is good for especially when you are the accounts payable person, right? It keeps you aware of what what bills you haven't paid yet. All right, so that's a cool feature there. Once again, we'll talk more about reports in chapter 6. Okay, well, that is definitely something that you can do while you're at it. So now we are finally at that point where we can finally go ahead and pay for our bills. Okay, again, you must use pay bills option in order to decrease an accounts payable. Okay, if you don't, and you use the write a checks feature, it will give you a pop-up message saying, hey, are you sure you're not trying to pay a bill? Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on pay bills. Now notice this, when I click on pay bills, it gives you a list of all the bills that you haven't paid yet. And it gives you the option to pick and choose which bill you want to pay. All right? Now again, let me talk about the ways that you can be able to pay a bill. The exact ways that you are able to enter in a bill is going to be the exact same way you can pay a bill. So enter a bill, you can also pay a bill. So again, you have your feature on the home page, okay? That's number one. You have the option here on your menu bar to pay your bills. That's number two. Any single way you can get to the vendor center, right? You have new transactions at the top to pay your bill. You can even right click on a specific person and be able to pay a bill. Okay, so that's 4. You can even select the actual vendor. So let's say Ace Supply, and I can go to manage transactions and be able to make a bill payment. So this one's different right here. It's not pay bills, it's bill payment. Okay. And of course, that was 5 already. So here's way number 6. Again, if you are in your bill tracker, right? You could simply go down and select the bill that you want. Let's say I want to only pay a supply. Go down here and make a bill payment. Or you can use either checks or check right here. Or what you can do is you can actually right-click it. Right-click the transaction and pay it. Okay? That was 6 different ways. Now this one has a 7th way. This one has a 7th way. How do I do that? What's the 7th way? If I actually double click on the bill and have it viewed, right? At the top of the window allows you to pay the bill. Okay, so again, 7 different ways. Okay, this one only has an extra feature, which is actually opening up the bill and being able to pay it right there. Now, if I use it this way, it's only going to show me one bill and one bill only. But if I actually use the pay bills function, okay, it will allow me to show me all the bills that I have that are available to pay. Okay, so if I click on pay bills, once again on the home page, easiest way, now it shows me that I have all these bills paid. And again, you can actually pick and choose, right? You can pick and choose which bills you actually want to pay. You can even go as far as doing specific due dates. So you could do due on or before X amount of date. Right here, you could take the calendar and notice this. I only have one bill due by February 18. Okay? All right? Or I could show all my bills, and here, now I have a whole bunch of bills available to pay. I can even filter the bills by vendors. So let's say I only want to see a supply. So I only have that one person right there. I could even do by due date. So if I wanted to do it on the due date, I could do it on the discount due date. So discount due dates, okay? Or whatever I want. But in this case, I want to make sure that I can see everybody. So in this case, I'm not going to choose, I'm going to choose all vendors, okay? And again, I'm going to put due date, okay? So there we go. I can pick and choose by check marking which bills I want to pay. So again, this scenario allows me to pay all of them, or I can pick just a supply. Okay, so that's what's really cool about this feature. You can pick and choose which checks that you want to pay. Some of them, maybe I want to make the discount due date, etc., etc. Okay. And here's the cool feature too. If I want to make all the payments all in one day, I can select the due date or the check date to be available all on the same date. Okay, and I can choose to whether I want to print them now or I can choose to print them later. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and pay both bills, okay? So that means in grand total, I am making a payment of $502. Now in this case, I can view the bill, okay, just to make sure. So if I want to go to Ace Supply, right? Let's check that bill due date right now, okay? And I say, well, I want to go to the bill. So here you go, pops up Ace Supply, and then again it tells me, okay, actually, I hit Wong and Son, okay? Again, yeah, I hit Wong and Son by accident. So there you go. I can actually view the bill. You can actually double click it, and you'll be able to view it as well. So yes, but in this case, I know for a fact, if you guys remember when I entered in the bill in the first place, my discount due date tells me right here is the 18th of February. So I don't even need to look at the bill to tell me that, hey, if I want to, I can take advantage of a discount. Okay? It gives me the date right there. Okay? Now again, I can choose the date. Let's say I want to make the payment for all of this stuff to be February 10. Okay, that's the example here in the book. I'm going to make a payment on February 10. So therefore, this bill, right, if you remember what the terms were, it was 2% if I paid within 10 days. If not, the whole bill was due in 30. In this case, I made my discount due date. So how am I able to add my discount? Okay. Now, of course, if you forget to add your discount, then again, you would have to manually undo the bill payment, or you would actually have to write yourself, or in this case, the vendor's going to write yourself a check for the extra payment, which, again, that is something we'll talk about in the next section. But in this case, right, I'm aware because I've been doing my accounting very clearly, and it tells me right here that I made the discount due date. My discount due date was on the 18th. I'm paying on the 10th. Okay, so therefore I'm fully aware that I should be getting a discount. Now, in order to set the discount or place that discount, what's going to happen is I have a little feature down here that allows me to add my discounts, and it can also allow me to add any credits. In this case, we'll talk about credits in a minute, or I guess after the break. But in this case, right, I am going to apply a discount. Okay? So I click on that little window there where it says apply discount. It's going to automatically say, oh, you're talking about Ace Supply. About having the, this bill is giving you a 2% discount, and you are acknowledging it. Okay? So here you go. It gives you the date that you actually got the actual bill, and it gives you the discount due date, which is the 18th. Okay? Now, in this case, right, it's going to give you, say, okay, so you are making a discount. So in this feature, what is the discount date? Again, it is the 18th. The discount is 2%, 10 net 30. So here, it automatically calculates for you what 2% of the discount is. So again, you don't need to do any single math in here. It did it for you automatically. Okay? All you had to say is it's 2% of whatever your original bill was. And that's what it did. It automatically calculated to you $7.20. Now again, the amount of discount is going to be $7.20. Now, this is where you're going to need to have a discount account. And in this case, I believe this is a sales discount. Or in this case, it is a purchase discount. Excuse me. Here we go, purchase discount. Okay. We already have the account already set up, so this is a purchase discount, right? I purchased something, and this vendor is now giving me a discount on top of it. Okay. So in this case, it doesn't really matter on what kind of tracking period we're on, because I will talk to you in chapter 8 more so about the different tracking methods, okay? But I will tell you this. QuickBooks is automatically going to be a perpetual type of accounting. So in this case, they keep track of everything differently than it would be in a normal accounting setting. So in this case, we actually have a purchase discount account. Okay. And again, the discount class, I believe, let's see where the discount is. Okay, bill tracker. Okay, so Ace Supply applied the discount to Walnut Creek. Okay. Walnut Creek. Okay. And once I've filled out that information, I click done. And what you're going to notice here now, you see the column for discounts. It applied the $7.20. So therefore, when I am making this overall payment, again, to the overall amount, right? Obviously, my Wong and Son is still intact. However, you look at the line across here, $360 plus your $7.20 discount, or I guess minus, not plus, is going to give you a total amount to be $352.80. Okay? So therefore, in grand total, I'm going to be making a total payment of $494.80 opposed to $502. Okay? And again, because we linked all these accounts, it's going to do the accounting for you, and it's going to decrease your accounts payable, and so on and so forth. So once I do that, next thing I need to fill out is the date, which we already know. Which type of method are you going to be paying? Obviously, you have two options. You either pay with a check or a credit card. In this case, I'm paying with a check. And I'm going to print it later. Okay? So we're not going to assign any check numbers yet. We're going to make it print later. And again, what account are you taking it out from? My checking account. So once again, I can go ahead, pay selected bills. Okay? I got two beep approvals. One for the one for Ace Supply and one for Wong and Son. And what you're going to notice here is you're going to get this window right here that says, great, you just paid two bills. Now, the next option is you can either go ahead and print your checks or you can run a report. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and either pay more bills or I can print my checks. In this case, I'm just going to click done. Okay? Because I'm going to show you how else you can print your checks if you are ready to print your checks. Okay? So once again, I'm going to go back to my chart of accounts real quick to take a look at my accounts payable account. So here's my accounts payable, and notice this. It decreased my accounts payable down to 0. So I don't owe accounts payable anything. Okay? And that's what I mean about how QuickBooks is able to do the accounting behind the scenes, where you're not actually physically making those adjustments or moving from one account to another. It will do it for you automatically. Okay? So, there we have it. Any questions here?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, go ahead.
On purchase discount,
Mhm.
it is income revenue.
No, purchase discount is not an income revenue. It's an expense account. So if I go ahead and check it out, so here's a cool feature too. You can search up your accounts if you'd like. So if I type in purchase, okay, enter that in here. Purchase discounts is 100% an expense account, or a cost of goods sold in this case, which is an expense account. Okay.
You paid $352.80
Mm-hmm.
instead of $360
Correct.
from the checking.
Correct.
The difference is $7.20.
Mm-hmm.
It is income to my company.
It is technically no, because you didn't sell anything, so it's not. You're not generating any revenue. You're purchasing stuff. That's an expense. You bought something. You're not selling something, so it's not income. Yes.
I confused.
You're buying something. You're buying something for a customer, right? To sell. In this case, because the vendor gave you a discount, therefore you saved money.
Yes, save money means
That doesn't mean that you made money. That you save money but not make money. There's a difference.
okay. Save money.
You save money but not make money. And we'll talk about the sales process tomorrow in chapter 2.
Okay. Thank you.
So in this case, right, my cost of goods sold, which is an expense account, right here, purchase discount is an expense because I made an expense to purchase an item from a vendor, right? I purchase items to sell to my customer, Jerry Perez, okay? But I still didn't, I didn't invoice my my customer yet because we'll talk about that tomorrow. However, in this case, why is my purchase discount an expense? Because that was the original thing I did. I purchased items in order to sell my items. So by me purchasing, this right here is a contra account. This one is going to be credited because I never made the full purchase. I never paid $360. I made the discount, so therefore I paid less. And this is why I transferred it out to my purchase discounts account. Okay? So then it reflects that I made a payment, but I didn't pay for the full amount. I end up paying $7.20 less. And there it is. It's right now in my purchase discount account. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, so let's take the next 15 minutes to talk about how we can actually print our checks now. Okay, here we are on the home page, right? We have the button right here at the very bottom of the window that says print checks. All right, awesome. Okay, and for any reason that you don't use that part, you can go to File, just like any program out there. You go File, Print, right? In this case, it's a little slightly different. So instead of you going File, Print, it's actually File, Print Forms, okay? And you actually select what you're printing. In this case, I'm printing out my checks, okay? So again, if you look at this feature, you could print out bill payment stubs. You could do credit memos. You could do invoices, labels, again, pay stubs, paychecks. You have a lot of different forms that you can print out, okay? But that's just in case you can't remember. If it's not on the home page, then you could just go to the regular File, Print. But in this case, it's File, Print Forms, and you got to select which one you're printing. In this case, we're printing checks, okay? So right now, when I pull up this window, it says that, hey, you paid 3 things already using either the Ready Checks window or use the bill payment, okay? So therefore, I have 3 checks that I need to pay, or print, excuse me. Because right now, I still have to do 3 things, or 2 things. I still need to assign a check number, and I still need to sign the check, and I need someone to verify that the checks have been, the amounts are correct, and so on and so forth, right? I need someone to validate, and that authorization is usually your president, CEO, or your accountant itself. Okay. So in this case, here I am. I'm ready to print out my bills, my checks. Okay. So I select obviously the ones I want to print. So again, you can save all of them. Again, in this example here, I only had 3 checks that I am printing because I saved it and I made that check mark to print later. Okay, and this is where I can actually create my check number. And in this case, because my checks that I print is going to be 100% different than the actual manual checkbook that I got from the bank that I walk around with, if I need to make an expense, I cut my check right then and there. 2 different things. So make sure you make some kind of differentiation between you printing your checks versus you actually writing a manual check out in public. Okay? And the association here is I'm going to make it check number 6001. Now notice this. When I put this number in here, it's going to print it collated. Meaning, every check that you see right here on this list, it's going to print it out in numerical value order. meaning it's going to be in the series. So first check that you see here is to Orlando Properties is going to be 6,001. Your next check for A Supply is going to be 6,002. And then your Wong and Son is going to be 6,003. So that's the thing that I wanted to make sure that you understand here is that when you assign a check number, it's going to keep a series and it's going to make the efforts to go ahead and keep you aware of what your number that you're using. Okay, so in this case, it's going to automatically pop up the next time you make a check that this is the number that you need to use. Okay, now if in case you end up doing another print later, it will automatically pop up here, but you definitely want to triple check your checking account just to ensure that you're not making a duplicate. Now again, QuickBooks is smart. If you enter in a check number that already exists, it's going to stop you saying, hey, this check number already exists. You need to use another number. Okay, and I'll show you that example in a couple examples later on. Okay, so once again, 6,001, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK because I'm not done with this yet. Now it's going to tell me how I want to print it out. All right, so in this case, it tells me how to set up my printer. Obviously, that's the first thing you should know. How am I going to set up my printer? So again, in this case, I'm going to be using the EXP document writer. Okay, sure. Again, page orientation is going to be, this is going to be a setting that's on your actual printer. Okay, make sure you're aware of that. And they always remind you, before printing out your paychecks, do a sample print, as in print something else on a document so you know exactly how to put the paper into your printer, because oftentimes you might waste checks that way because you might accidentally print it on the wrong side, okay? So there's a lot of standard procedure that you have to do, and QuickBooks tells you that, reminds you in the book, okay? Other things
So
that you...
that option will already be there. Do you can you click on the down
Yeah,
arrow?
you can choose to use
Oh, so
paper
you have
feed.
okay.
It gives you options. So again, usually this is a setting that's on your actual printer. Okay, so yes, in this case, I'm using this one right here. Okay, and then now here's where it's talking about how you actually want to print it out. So voucher style. Voucher style is where it's okay. So if you talk about a paycheck, for instance, right? A voucher style is going to be where the top portion is all your information and details of everything that's in regarding to this check. All right. So the information, such as, for example, paycheck, right? You have your pay stub information on top, and at the very bottom, you have a perforated line for your actual check. Same thing here. You can actually print the bill at the very top, and then at the bottom is going to be your actual check. All right, that's voucher style. Okay. Standard style is a pretty straightforward where all you want to do is just print out regular checks. All right, so it's the size of a piece of paper split into 3, and you can put as many checks in one piece of paper. This is more common because it doesn't waste that much paper, right? And then, of course, the last one's going to be wallet size, which is the more smaller checkbook actual looking type of size, where it's a very, very tiny sheet. But again, you could print up to 3 checks in one sheet, and it's the actual size of an actual check itself, right? It's very tiny. Okay, those are the options you can choose. So in this case, I'm gonna choose standard because I have exactly 3 checks, and I don't want to waste paper, so I want it printed like this. Okay, and yes, you need to order the exact special paper for these exact types. You can't just have a wallet size and be able to print standard. No, you have to know exactly what kind of checks that you have. So here's where it's cool. You can even print out your company logo, your company name. You can even use a printed signature. All right, so by clicking printed signature, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel, or I can actually add in a signature. So again, you click on signature, right? Oftentimes, this is widely used that you would commonly have your boss have an image of their signature, because maybe the boss doesn't come into the office every single day, or maybe they only come in once a week, or maybe they come in just to do some business in the morning, every morning, and you can't catch them, right? Because you're probably doing the checks during the day, and all of a sudden you come to a point where you missed your boss, okay? So oftentimes what they normally do in most cases is they have a printable signature. Obviously, you obviously need to get validation from your boss, of course, to use their signature, but it makes it that much easier so then you don't have to catch them and make them hand sign all the checks. So think about it. Think of a corporation that has to sign over 100 checks. No, it's almost physically impossible without breaking your hand. So in this case, right, you're able to upload a file. Okay, now in this case, that little box right there, you do need to have what's like that little digital pad to be able to enter in your signature right here if you'd like. Unfortunately, you cannot just use your mouse. It will not let you do that, but you need that little digital little mouse pad that you're able to actually write in a signature in here. Okay, so in this case, I can't do that with a mouse. So what I can do is I can upload a file. Now, in this case, in your actual student portable files, you do actually have the actual file for that. So let me go ahead and look it up real quick. So again, documents LVPTA Accounting QuickBooks Class Student Portable Files. And then here again, we're going to go to the final 2021. And here you have the signature. And it gives you this reminder. You just click OK, and there it is. Vern Black signature right there. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So then when you actually print them, the checks will be there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click print. All right. So in this case, right, my computer, right, I'm going to be printing out a digital copy. And I'm going to make sure I placed it into your actual folder here, just so then I don't, so then I have them on file at all times. So once again, LVPTA Accounting QuickBooks Class Student Portable Files, this time AM97. And I'm going to go ahead and just write this as checks for or for, I guess I can actually write the date, February 10, 2021. Whatever you want to do. Okay, and I'm going to go save. Now, once again, I get this message saying, okay, well, you just successfully printed your checks. Anything you also want to do, and you click OK. Now, let's take a look at my check register one more time. So if I go ahead and take a look at my check register, let's go ahead and click OK. And notice this. When you print out your checks, obviously, it's going to be printing out from the printer, right? For me, I made a digital copy. It's going to print out on your printer, and it should show you in QuickBooks that when I made my checks, I printed them out as 601, all right, 602, and 603. Now, notice this. You can tell a difference between an actual check that you written out versus a bill payment, because it tells you right here that you paid your bill. Okay, and that's exactly what I want to make sure that you are aware of. Instead of using a regular write checks window, you're using the bill payment, and it tells you right here that that's exactly what you did. Okay. And I assigned the numbers, and I successfully signed each check. So any questions here?
No. This part right here is the behind the scene part, right?
No. The behind the scenes is you have to actually go into your, if you want to, there is a section called journal transaction, your journal transaction list, which I believe we don't get to take a look at that until chapter 2 or chapter 3, where you actually get to see the behind the scenes, okay? So in this case, this is not the behind the scenes. This is just my ledger account. In aspect, this is my check register account, my ledger account.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, any other questions? All right. If there's no questions, it is exactly 10:14, so 10:15. Go ahead and take your 15-minute break.